Stop 4. Start listening to this stop as you access the stairwell behind Block 1. Inside Fort Eben Emael, an alert warning was received from the Liege headquarters at 1:30 a.m. on May 10, 1940. The report detailed German troop movements near the border. However, it caused no panic as it was the third alert that month, and most senior Belgian officers thought it was another training exercise. The fort commander, Major Jean, was asleep in his villa when the report was received. He was awakened and informed of the situation. Major Jean immediately telephoned Liege for more information and directed Fort Eben Emael to execute the standing alert drill. The standing alert order called for gun crews to fire 20 blank rounds from the 75mm gun at 1/2 minute intervals, thus alerting the Canal Bridge section of a pending attack and summoning the remaining gun crews that were garrisoned in the local area. At 4:15 a.m., Lieutenant Longdos, platoon leader responsible for surface machine guns, reported that the majority of the soldiers were at their post, including the troops who manned the surface-mounted anti-aircraft guns. 20 minutes later, Captain Hottermans, commander of the artillery battery, ordered Cupola Sud, which was the southernmost of the 75mm guns, to begin the blank fire barrage. At the same time, Major Jean heard gunfire from the direction of the nearby town of Maastricht and made up his mind that this was not a drill, but the real thing. The next step of the standing alert order called for the destruction of the barracks and administration buildings just outside the fort entrance to clear fields of fire. Since part of the fort's garrison was off duty, gun crews were used to carry out the mission to clear the front entrance, leaving only skeleton crews in some gun positions and leaving others entirely unmanned. The Germans were preparing to attack Western Europe in the late spring of 1940. Tactically, one of Hitler's biggest obstacles was Fort Eben Emael. Looming over Belgium's border with the Netherlands, Eben Emael sat astride the planned invasion route. Its guns protected the most important 3 bridges over the Albert Canal. Hitler's tanks and armies would have to cross these bridges to strike the heart of Belgium. The Germans had concluded that a conventional assault on Eben Emael would cost thousands of lives and take months. Too long for a blitzkrieg. Hitler is said to have come up with the idea of landing a commando force of paratroopers on the fort's earthen roof to take out the enemy guns and trap the Belgian soldiers inside, ensuring a safe crossing of the Albert Canal for the Wehrmacht tanks and troops. General Kurt Student, commander of Germany's airborne forces, decided to use gliders, which could approach the fort silently. At Hitler's urging, Student devised a 4-pronged surprise attack that would simultaneously target the 3 vital bridges and Fort Eben Emael. Training began in November of 1939 in a large remote area at Helstheim near Hanover in northern Germany. Student chose Captain Walter Koch, an experienced paratrooper and commander of 1st Company, Parachute Regiment 1, to lead the 480-man assault. Koch created 4 assault groups, 1 to take each of the 3 bridges and a 4th to capture Eben Emael. This last detachment, given the code name Granite, was led by 23-year-old First Lieutenant Rudolf Vise, an unusual assignment for such a junior officer. Preparations began under tight security. The men did not wear Air Force insignias. No leave was granted, and calls and mail were screened. Once we ran into some girls we knew, and the whole unit had to be transferred, recalled Sergeant Major Helmut Wenzel, Granite's senior enlisted officer. Any man who leaked word would be executed. Witzig had 85 men in his command, 11 glider pilots and 74 veteran combat engineers qualified as paratroopers. Rehearsals for the raid were meticulous. The men studied aerial photos of the fort as well as a large sand table model. A German contractor who helped build the fort provided blueprints that were used to construct a scale mock-up, complete with large guns and fields of fire. Witzig's men ran through their assignments, and at the lieutenant's urging, they were quietly taken to Sudetenland to practice on former Czech fortifications. As you travel up the path, you will come to a place where the trail divides. You will see a military artillery casemate to your right. It is hard to miss. To the left, the trail continues its ascent up St. Peter's Hill. At this point, take the fork in the trail to the right. You will come to the first of the outside gun emplacements on our tour. You are now at Vise 2. Walk along the main face of the emplacement. There are 3 other bunkers exactly like this one that you will visit during our tour. Let's take a close look at this emplacement. You will find 3 portholes where artillery pieces would have been found during 1940. The main 75mm artillery pieces had a range of 7 kilometers. This particular emplacement was called Vise 2 because the artillery guns were situated to fire south towards the city of Vise and military targets in that direction. Because of Vise 2 facing, it was not a primary target for the German paratroopers, as the guns did not threaten the bridges over the Albert Canal. In fact, this particular emplacement was not attacked, and the interior access from the tunnels underground take you to a perfectly preserved artillery emplacement. This gun and the 3 identical emplacements that we will see later on in our tour had 3 separate levels. As you walk around this particular emplacement, you're on the top floor of the emplacement. A level directly below this gun level was an ammunition storeroom and preparation area for the artillery rounds. Shells were cleaned and fusing activated, so the shells became live rounds before being transferred to the guns directly above. Below these 2 levels was the ammunition room areas of the gun. All ammunition was stored below the 2 levels of the gun emplacement in the intermediate level. Depending on the gun emplacement, there could be up to 130 steps leading from the intermediate level to the guns above. At the intermediate level, there were ammunition lifts and stairwells. The lifts and stairwells were separated by a pair of double armored doors. If an emplacement was breached by an enemy, these armored doors were closed and denied the enemy access to the tunnels and thus the interior of the fort. Next to these armored doors were a variety of rooms, much of them used to store ammunition. The ammunition rounds were transported from these rooms by handcart through the armored doors and by means of a lift to the lower gallery of the gun emplacement. The rounds were then passed up to the top level by 3 lifts, 2 of which were situated in the center of the stairwell that allowed the crews access to the gun room. The 75mm quick-firing guns were based on the Krupp 1905 model that had been in service with the Belgian Army since the Great War. The gun crews for Vise 2 comprised of 5 NCOs and 28 soldiers. You can now move on to the next stop. Proceed to stop 5 and listen while you are walking to the next stop, Maastricht 2. You access Maastricht 2 by continuing along the trail to the top of St. Peter's Hill. Follow the trail into the field and look to your right, and you will see Maastricht 2.